Yang. It really does symbolizes Domin's theme and the Injukhals' might. Welcome back to another chapter of Conquest of the Blue Planet. Last time, we actually took a break from Cecil's perspective for a while as he heads to Tenebre and finds the glamour greens. Meanwhile, Kain and Yang actually made it to Baron as well as the Elder of Mysidia, and they were all preoccupied of Rosa's fate, as well as the Injukhal enslaving everyone. So, they took an airship, which isn't as advanced as the Enterprise, but they had no choice. The Elders stayed while Yang and Kain, along with their countrymen, had decided to go to Damsian first in hopes to find the fire crystal. But they fought off some Injukhal, and Kain witnessed their enslavement over them. So, they were able to knock the Injukhal out and their countrymen back to their senses, but it was only a distraction. The fire crystal had already been taken. So it's 2 crystals gone, and they hoped the wind crystal would be safe in Cecil's hands. They're not sure of the earth crystal yet in Troya. But, meanwhile, Cecil actually went to Tenebre, and he actually had to take a black chocobo to be more discreet. However, he was still ambushed by the Injukhal, and someone actually appreciated his skills as it was overrun by tyranny, and Cecil hopes that this mysterious stranger, who would actually turn out to be his main enemy, would help him find the glamour greens in order to cure Rosa and their upcoming child. So, let's get this thing started. And I have to say, this is one of my favorite chapters. Okay, this is where Domin finally makes his goal into fruition, while Kain and Yang keep gathering recruitments. Will the world be doomed into rule? Kain and Yang continue to find recruits for the fight against the Injukhal. Damsian had recently fallen, and the fire crystal was stolen right in front of them after they fought some of the savages. They now know how their countrymen, as well as the mages of Mysidia, had been infected by their thrall. In order to assist Cecil and secure Rosa, they decided to strike back and restore the world into order, while eventually looking for the glamour greens. Unfortunately, things have not gone well. Recently, they headed to Troya and noticed the Ipops and some of the guards' women were missing. Those that stayed became injured, and the earth crystal was gone, much like the other elemental gems. Kain feared that Cecil would succumb to Domin's spell and relentlessly give him the wind crystal, yet still his intentions remained unknown. I fear after Domin retrieves them, he may go to the land of the dwarves and usurp the dark crystals. This could be a cinch for him. I hear you, Kain, Yang said over the rotors. We do not have much time left. Our last stop should be at Eblan. I hope Edge and the ninjas haven't fallen under their influence yet. As they flew south, the air started to get hot and dry like it did back in Damsian. Inside the desert fortress, the people have already been brainwashed by the drums they recently heard. The ninjas went on a full-blown rampage as they fought against those that haven't gone under. Those being Prince Edge, Senesjal, Case, Sengetsu, Izayoi, and Gekko. With the overwhelming efforts made by the Injukhal warriors as well as their condors and the ninjas, it was nearly too much. Edge and Sengetsu used their ninjutsu, their simultaneous double blitz to zap the humongous birds from the air, yet the tension was mounting before them. The muscular ninja that wielded his prowess of fire, Gekko, dealt with some of the ninjas hand to hand trying to drive them away from Senesjal and the innocent civilians. But only he could do so much as they kept overwhelming him. Hold them! They're trying to get through! Highness, their might is growing. We can't keep them back for long. Case looks similar to Edge, and much like him, he's very well-rounded and quick on his feet. Believe it or not, it's another original character. Think of it as the father of the Wind Ninja in the after years. He's also one of the most nimble and petite out of the 4 unaffected ninjas. And this is how I described him. His distraction against the Injukhal were almost flawless. Unfortunately, the ninjas just kept getting in his way. Surprise attack coming from above! As he barely saw another wave of condors. Without hesitation, Ezuyoi used some of her ice magic, mostly her Blizzara, to drive him back. Some of her assailants countered with their own fire, injuring her in the process. Damn! Ezuyoi, be careful! Apparently, these guys know our weaknesses. She managed to cure herself and then defended with some water-type ninjutsu, yet still they kept on advancing. Don't they ever give up? Hedge grew more outraged with their persistence. He could have sworn one of the redskins said to finish the job. The condors were gone, but the remaining enemies sneered and closed in for the kill. Then, Kain and his group showed up and took down some of the red men with their lethal jumps and kicks. Seeing they were nearly overmatched, they, along with several willing ninjas, used their smoke screens to the Injukhal's advantage and vanished without a trace. The recipient's cough, but Edge didn't falter. You're not getting away! He managed to barely see the ninjas and the red men run away amongst the thick black fog. And he hurriedly followed them. He burst outside with as much speed as a ninja would possess. There weren't any traces of them, not even footprints. It was as if they weren't even here. Those insolent bastards! They tainted our ninjas, and they wreaked havoc on my kingdom. I will not let the arts of ninjutsu fall into their dark hands. They will pay! Edge! Kain and Yang ran up to him. Are you hurt? Despite the monks' ongoing competition with the Eblanese, they still sometimes worked together and put aside their differences. No, I'm fine. Thanks for the assistance, guys. They were getting to be quite a pain. Yes, you've already taken over other kingdoms as well. You should be lucky yours is still standing. Lucky? Didn't you see what happened? Over half of our ninjas are gone, and the Celestial is injured. Those redskins. I never thought these guys would ever turn rogue. They were peace-loving people, but they were hardly seen. Seems you know them. They were peaceful until Domin started to usurp other nations and steal the crystals. That's what Cecil told us. What? Cecil is in on this? Alone? And the crystals are in peril again? What's next? The Tower of Babel activating? Just you wait. Calm yourself, Highness. Ezuyoi marched up. Celestial wouldn't want you to grow so reckless when you lose your cool. Yeah, you still have us, right? We will assist you, and so would Kei's and Zangetsu, for the sake of our kingdom and for our sacred arts. I appreciate the offer, but Kei's was very young and new to the elites. His skills in wielding wind ninjutsu, and his ability were on par, yet he still was a newbie. He always had his doubts despite his potential. He thought he wouldn't stand a chance if he were to go to war. Let's go. We can't stay in dilly here. Yeah. The prince was discussing the arrangements for his men with his reinforcements. He enlisted Zangetsu, Ezuyoi, and Gecko as his teammates. That's right. It's the Eblan 4, but it's a little different. I always liked those guys. He was very reluctant to add Kei's, but his determination was unwavering. He promised his girlfriend he shall return after the conflict. Don't let me down, Tyro. This isn't a game, you know. Of course not, Highness. Kei's hoped his training at the Eblan cave paid off. All right, we're all set. Let's put an end to those tyrannical tribesmen. He will answer for what Domin has done, and if he ever manages to hypnotize Cecil, he'll taste my steel. Don't let it get to your head, Highness. I won't. Jeez, geezer, you worry too much. They headed to the airship, and for a moment Edge looked out at the horizon. He hoped that Radio would also get involved, and he would promise to help her any way he can. Edge, let's do it! He ran back to the deck, and his sensei soon followed. Within the deep forest of Tenebre, Cecil was sitting on a rock next to Domin. Actually, should separate these things, but OBS crashed on me, so I gotta do this again. Anyway, within the deep forest of Tenebre, Cecil was sitting on a rock next to Domin. They were immersed with the Injukhals tribe, along with various other clans. The black mages and the white mages of Mysidia also gathered as they were being dressed for the victory dance. So were the Epops and the guardswomen from Troya, the ninjas of Eblan and the remaining monks from Fabul. Drums were beating steadily among the crowd. The Paladin was just anointed as one of Domin's very own. The Epops were tweezing his eyebrows and applying bloody war paint on his face. He was sitting very still, as his eyes glowed with the same manner as the monks. His blue headband was removed and replaced by an indigenous one. It was a mix with crimson and violet with 3 feathers sticking out of the front. It also had an exotic lunar design embedded in the center. Domin also had a new outlook, which is what you've seen in Trials of a King, which is similar to the African dance in the park, which is a classic Sesame Street clip. Dang, I wish I could find that. One of the Epops readjusted his collar, and Domin just smiled at her. And finally, to top it all, he had on that black and white headdress. When the dressing was complete, he declared as he stood before his brethren, "My fellow Injukhal, both the Aborigines and those who have just joined us from the world over. Our mission is finally at its climax. At long last we have found our finest warrior, the holy Paladin Cecil." As soon as he heard his name, he immediately straightened. "He has joined us as a mighty addition to our people. We will honor him, like how the late Chief Abdullah has. He is a vital asset to us all, and so is this victory. We've collected half of the world's crystals according to him, and we shall soon find the remaining dark crystals. We will gain unsurmountable power from them." 3 were placed in a pit. Domin motioned to his herald. "Cecil, if you would kindly do so, give us the legendary wind crystal you've obtained from Fabul." Nodded slowly and spoke. "Of course, Chieftain." He walked toward the pit and placed the crystal within the others. Strangely enough, they were already hovering inside. With all the light crystals gathered, everyone roared. The Paladin bowed down to his new master. The latter raised his arms to calm the pandemonium. "Now, let the ceremony begin," said he in a low, deep gong were heard, which is very much like the intro. Everyone stomped their feet to the building beat as more red men were hitting various drums such as tom-toms and even skulls. Some of the other countrymen participated, playing their own percussion. One of them was hitting sticks and cried out wildly. Cecil at first watched the people around him dance to this primitive, ravenous, and thrilling Congo trance music. He soon followed the Troyans as they squirmed their bodies low to the ground and rose up slowly. The clans were reveling in it just as Cecil and Domin were. Most of their bodies were ascending and descending as they all absorbed the negative energy surrounding them. In fact, from the drums, darkness was spreading as they were being played. They were all embracing the sinister desires in their hearts. It was so intense that it even made the black chocobo panic and fly away. It was almost too much for Cecil as he and Domin took in most of the energy. He felt so alive, so driven and enthralled. The more he took in, the more intense his feelings of aggression and power were. He kind of missed this sensation since he stripped off his accursed Dark Knight armor. Next to his lord, he was enjoying it. He kept on sneering and breathing heavily until he fulfilled his appetite, let out a loud war cry of his own. With his voice, it was mixed in with the roar of a dragon. I wish I had the sound effect for that. The Feymar chaos was sweeping through as each Eidolon was suffering. A lot of them were holding their heads and ears in agony, begging for the drums to stop. Chocobos were running all over and colliding into the walls. One of the female beasts yelled, "Ah! The noise! I can't stand it!" Apparently, the phantasmal beings were very sensitive to the prowess above. Even Asura and Leviathan and their elderly vessels were just as pained. Viridia was nothing since she was only human. However, she was frightened by how her newfound family was feeling. There was little to nothing she could do to calm them down. She was so helpless and scared for everyone, even for that tiny bomb. Youngest of the bums was outside hurting as much as his dad bomb. From the interlude. The big blue one attempted to cover him, but he was just wailing. His circular body started to flash on and off, then ignite as he was releasing the pressure. Lastly, the worst happened as he let out an ear-piercing scream. It made a colossal explosion. The impact knocked everyone but Rydia, Asura, and Leviathan down, and everything grew silent as the smoke cleared. All that remained was a large crater where the dark, lifeless bomb was. The monsters eventually gathered around the horrific sight, mourning over the tragedy, especially the devastated blue father bomb. White emerged along with Rydia and her guardians. They were just as sad and shocked as they were. Rydia sunk to her knees when she looked over, burst into tears, cradling him. Who knew the drums could cause so much merciless destruction? Who would do such a very unbearable, unforgivable act? The king of the Eidolons laid a hand on her shoulder. I just heard the drums were from a savage clan known as the Injukhals. A figure clad in darkness named Domin was leading the menace. Our friend Cecil was in the middle of it. Cecil? Yes, dear. He's one of them. He's under their thrall now. Tears stopped as she swallowed harshly. This wasn't the time to grieve. The whole world will soon be in ruin thanks to them. And Cecil if they won't get him back. Looking at the tiny bomb and its depressed dad once again, the summoner's determination grew. Slowly, while looking at the creatures she called her friends, she stood up with a great deal of courage. Let's go. To Tenebre. I won't let that evil tribe get away with this! Back on the airship, everyone was preparing themselves as they were adjusting their armor and equipment. Edge and his team were sharpening their shurikens and blades. Monks were sparring. Dragoons were warming up. Yang was assisting everyone as King took the helm. They were heading east toward the mysterious island. Through the victim's hazy memory, they said it lies somewhere within the eastern archipelago. That brought the fleet to their next destination. They were about to soar over Agar while Kain was worrying about Cecil's fate. Yang sensed it. Yang, it's Cecil. I can't help but recall those dreadful times when I was shrouded in darkness. My mind was so overwhelmed by much hatred and despair. Golbez and Zemus, they used our hearts as playthings, exploiting our weaknesses to their twisted advantage. It never stops, and it sometimes feels to be true. If Cecil was really brainwashed by Domin. You fear he may not be coming back? As if Yang read his mind. I understand your insecurity. As a paladin, he is weak against such an element. It is a powerful thing, and had manipulated him a few times before. But we're here for him. We are the world's only hope. He needs us. We will defeat Domin, just like we did with Zeromus. That's right! Yang has a point there, as much as I hate to admit it. He was throwing his bitter rivalry away for the moment. If you say so, Edge. They were flying over the mountain range with a colossal crater. Red flame as large as a Faraga spell busted deep within the abyss. And there was the enormous beast leaping out. And everyone was startled, but as they calmed down, they realized it was only Ifrit. And Rydia was on top of it. The crew greeted her enthusiastically, especially Edge. Hello, guys! Rydia hopped off her ally's back and dismissed him. Rydia, you made it! They embraced each other, reunited like they haven't seen each other in time immemorial. It's great to see you too, Yang. Kain, Edge. Ninja stepped forward and continued to stare at her. Sylphs couldn't be more happier as they encircled their favorite monk. Who is he? Who is she? She's the She's the last surviving summoner from the distant village of Mist. I bet that is Edge's girlfriend he's been chasing after. Wait, what? Never mind. Ignoring the teasing, Kain asked. You've heard of what's happened, haven't you? Yes, I have. The Eidolons were crying hysterically as we heard the drums from above. Leviathan gave the intel on it. Then, one of the bombs exploded and died. He was so young. She couldn't bear that tragic event. Her comrades understood, and they didn't force her to press on. Sensing her sadness, there was her true friend, the Mist Dragon. It flew right next to the airship. The radiant serpent, her heart mended again as she jumped onto her back. Being her late mom's Eidolon, she had always known when to comfort her. Then, more Eidolons came to her side, such as a couple bombs, the chocobos, and even a Sora. We've not a minute to waste. We shall go to Tenebre, no matter how dire the consequences. Look! It appeared to be expanding, the darkness over the island, gradually covering other landforms. Is that it? That's the enemy's stronghold? Doesn't seem too bad. We can take these guys on easily. That is, if none of us goes under their thrall, like they did to our own ninjas. He crossed his kotsus in front of him just as he did against Rubicante. This looks bad. Really hope Cecil will make it out of this. As to our countrymen. We cannot kill them. No, but we won't hesitate. Our main enemies are the savage tribe and Domin. We don't know what he's capable of, although we should stay sharp even when they should use those vile drums again. If Cecil is under, I'll be the one to take him on, and hopefully the chief as well. Hey, the Enterprise is here. Sure enough, it was. So Cecil is definitely awaiting us. He told us to stay put, but we won't back down, not without a fight. Domin should be no match for us as long as we're careful. Then it's settled. Let's head down to Tenebre. Full speed ahead. And so the Fleet of Hope were about to take on the most dangerous mission any of the warriors will ever face. At that time, Cecil, Domin, and their tribe were celebrating and reveling at the middle of their village. Dark Head of the Injukhals was sitting within a ring while the brainwashed Paladin sat across. From the white mages, they were each given a golden chalice filled with crimson liquid that seemed odd to Cecil. The ruler marched over to him and whispered, It is the blood of my people, Cecil. You are one of us now. Drink this. You shall be a part of my clan forever. The atmosphere was very enticing to him. While the epops were singing and worshipping him, so was this offer. He gazed at his chieftain before he closed his eyes and took a sip until he stopped. He opened them and his head felt heavy. It was as if he just woke up from a dream. He looked around. The Injukhals. With them? He then saw a scary sight. They have blood on their lips? Are they bleeding? No, it couldn't be. But wait! That man, Domin, he's here too. It's him, from that horrible dream. He realized he wasn't dreaming at all. This was too surreal. He realized he was holding something, a rare gold chalice. He hadn't seen one so elaborate before. Figured only the richest people in the world would possess such belongings. His eyes wandered into his cup. He hardly saw the liquid, or what he was about to drink. By the time a cloud moved away from the sun, he saw it was actual blood. Startled, he almost dropped it and spilled it. His hands were trembling. Domin looked over. Quickly, he changed his expression. May I be excused, chieftain? simply nodded his assent. Slowly from the cushion he was sitting cross-legged on, Cecil stood up and wandered away. He wasn't sure where he was going or where he should go to next. Yet he had this feeling that something was wrong. His absent mind led him to like a tower made of limestone, away from Domin and his slaves. He also had an inclination neither of the people were serving him willingly. Still he pressed on. As he trekked up, there was an intense stench. He could relate it to a rotting corpse. He ventured further. Some other chamber, he saw pools of blood and decaying weapons all over the place. Cecil immediately turned away as his heart began to race. This was undoubtedly turning into some deluded nightmare. His head began to feel foggy. He was on the verge of fainting. Mindlessly went to another room. He was completely shocked when he saw Pelham and Porum. Their arms were raised above them by intertwining chains wrapped around a tall wooden pole, reaching to the ceiling. Bloodstains were splattered over the walls. Debris were scattered throughout the floor. Various tribal ornaments, including a few drums, were put on display. There were a few Injukhals, though. From their expressions, they couldn't wait to annihilate the children. Cecil hid himself in a wall. I will not let them fall from their evil hands. Porum actually began to stir. Tried to wake up her brother. Pelham? Pelham! The kid woke up. What? Tested the strong chains. What is this? How did we end up here? Ugh! What is that rotten stench? It smells like 1,000 carcasses in here. Porum noticed it as well. Pelham, we were abducted by the Redskins. They invaded Mysidia, stole the water crystal, and attacked Elder, remember? Yeah, I thought we had them, till the mages got in our way. Looked around and were more frightened of their impending doom. They started to whimper as though they'd never get out. How was anyone supposed to rescue them in the middle of enemy territory, where all of their close friends have succumbed to those drums? Everyone they knew was against them and serving those demons. Pelham wanted to escape, but Porum said no, thinking it would attract the onlookers. But what can we do? Porum never said a word. She was incredibly horrified. Someone was coming from the doorway as he marched up slowly to the helpless youngsters. Looked like he was shrouded in, and there was poor lighting. He could hardly make it out. There was a sword and a scabbard. All they did was brace for their deaths. They figured the figure sliced the chains above them, and the links fell and unraveled themselves. He was lucky the clanking noise didn't startle any onlookers. The fraternal twins looked at their hands and were surprised they'd been freed by that stranger. Was it an Injukhal who decided to betray his tribesmen? He looked the part, but he knelt down to them. It's all right, Pelham and Porum. I'm here. Cecil! They both made a tight embrace. They couldn't be more happier to see him. Neither was the Paladin. Oh, it's so great to see you two, alive and well. I knew you would come for us. Porum never thought so, but I did. She just burst into tears. Porum? What's wrong? Cecil, I thought no one was going to save us. We were afraid we were gonna die. The mages turned against us after we fought back with everything we had, trying to protect Elder. And he's gone much like Tella. No, the Elder is not dead. I managed to save him as he was on his last legs. I know Mysidia was invaded, just like Fabul and Mithril. I was able to cure him in time. He's safe now. Don't worry. Oh, we should worry. You're wearing some of their apparel. That shows you became one of them, haven't you? Pelham! Porum, no. He's right. I was controlled. You have every reason to hate me. But we mustn't get into our emotions right now. We need to escape somehow. Before the trio thought of a foolproof strategy, they heard footsteps. What is that? I think it's a monster. One of the Redskins. I can smell their intense odor from here. Cecil just knelt there. Porum called to him. I'm thinking. After a few moments, he opened his eyes. Everyone, hold on to me, and never let go. Paladin closed his eyes once more. Teleport! They vanished almost instantly, just before a black mage, an e-popped, and a red man marched into it. Needless to say, they were outraged the hostages escaped. They immediately put two and two together as they hypothesized that Cecil betrayed Domin's vow as he helped them. The Injukhal ordered to let their chieftain know of this treachery. By the time the children were released from Cecil, they returned safe and sound. We're back! We're in the city! I sure hope Elder is okay. Sure enough, there he was. Two young apprentices embraced him. He was indeed a little startled on the Paladin's new look. Cecil, I can't thank you enough for rescuing them since you've kept your promise. However, I'm quite rattled of your new attire. Just sulked. Regardless, the important thing is they are safe. You have my utmost gratitude. Thank you, Elder. I will escort them to Baron. I'll pray that things won't take a turn for the worst. Kain and Yang have already left. Kain and Yang? But they would... Let's not presume such unfortunate events. Palom, Porum, come. We must head to Baron from the Devil's Road. It's far too dangerous for you two to tag along. I want to help Cecil. Me too. No. Believe me, I'd really appreciate that. This is between me and the Injukhal. I'll let Yang and the others handle it as well. They can easily hold their own. Just please be careful, Cecil. Don't end up in the Red Demon's control again. Get our mages back. I will, you guys. You've my word on that. The elder gave a small prayer for success and Rosa's welfare, although the most vital objective is to win Domin's war. Cecil looked at himself. Washed off. Case is one of the... rinsed off his face vigorously. He then removed the crimson headband and replaced it with his signature blue one from his side pocket. He was beginning to feel more like himself. Briefly looked at Rosa's condition, thinking he may not have much time. Still, he must forge ahead and put an end to Domin once and for all, even though he's uncertain who he's dealing with. Case is one of the names I came up with a replacement for Sukanoa from the after years. It's a unisex Japanese name, signifies wind, or cold, as in the illness. Thought it would be most appropriate. Obviously, there has to be a replacement since he hasn't been born yet. The other three ninjas are, like I said, from the after years. Still in this fic, assisting Edge in the global war. And the song for the war dance is what I've played, The Secret of Mana, which, believe it or not, I actually found out from Lancer from his hacked version of Final Fantasy VI, the Eternal Crystals. Specifically when the player fights Lich, one I guess is one of the super bosses in Kefka's tower. Also, just a quick shout out to the Altarch Alex Roshan. I don't understand how that song is a mockery to the player. Seriously? That song rocks! Hell, I even used it as the main theme here. As for the song during Rydia's vow, I'll play that in a minute. It's by Nutritious. It's an epic piece of music here. And let's hope Final Fantasy IV would have like a motion picture. Kind of like a reboot or a sequel to The Bouncer. I really wish for that to happen as well. Of course, Domin's costume is inspired by African Dance in the Park, like I mentioned. So, that scene where Palom and Porum were held captive was, believe it or not, a scene from State of Fear by Michael Crichton. It was a novel, actually, and I didn't like it that much. So, I didn't understand the environmental crap, but the savage tribe from the Solomon Islands as well as the country itself were extremely terrifying. I'd also like to declare a name for the airship as the Fleet of Hope, which is... You would hear that song in a minute. So Godspeed to them. And pardon me for all the audio issues, but
OBS kept crashing on me. Ugh. It was sheer hell to, like, get the recordings right. So, I'll see you all next time. Are you gonna work?